Can you hear me? Good. My name is Mary Proctor Dane, and I am the get for the board. That means that I'm the person who usually goes out and procures speakers. And I want to tell you, it's an adventure. I meet so many interesting people, and I'm always surprised because many of them are really quite distinguished, and they're so nice to me. They just treat me like another person. Well, the reason that I have asked Steve if I could introduce Rose is because this subject is very, very close to my heart. I am from a family of German Jews. Some of them did not get out in time. And so my great-grandparents died in Theresienstadt. Many others of my relatives squeaked out, by which I mean they either went into hiding and then found a way to get out, or sneaked out another way. But nobody in my family just walked out. They came from Denmark, and their name was Melchior, Melchior. When they got to the place in Denmark where they were going to move over to become German citizens, the guy in the booth said, "Oh, I can't pronounce Melchior, write it down. I'm going to call you Dane. D-E-H-N, and that's what he did. My great-grandfather was the music critic for the Berlin newspaper. His wife, my great-grandmother, was a poet and a writer. One of their daughters was in the French Resistance and was caught by the Germans and tortured. My great-grandfather on the other side was a doctor, and that's how it had gone. There would be a rabbi and then a doctor, and then a rabbi and then a doctor, back and back and back, many generations. My grandfather, Dane, was a mathematician. He was a geometer, if you know what that is. I never did. It just means that he was interested in geometry. And he's in Britannica, and he's responsible for something called Dane's lemma, which means he had a theory, and that people have been trying to solve that theory ever since 1901. He had to come across Siberia in a cattle car and almost died. He left a 4,000-volume library in Manchester, England, because he couldn't pay the storage on it. He only got to the States because some woman pediatrician in Idaho saw him on a newsreel that showed him and his wife Tony getting off a boat, coming over, and she said, "Oh, I'll sponsor them." So I have always felt a little bit less enthusiastic than some people about the role that the U.S. has played in getting German intellectuals over here. I think, in fact, it's quite a scandal what happened. My father barely got out as well. He got out because one of his great uncles ran a schnapps factory. Any of you know what schnapps are? Yeah? It's a kind of liqueur, and so he was a wealthy distiller, and he agreed to sponsor my father and to send him to medical school. The last photograph that we have of my great-grandparents is them standing on a balcony in Lugano, Switzerland, looking out over the lake, and that was the day before they were captured and sent to Theresienstadt, and that is where they died. So the subject is very close to my heart. I still feel a very, very strong affiliation with Jews. whether they are from the Holocaust or not. I feel like I'm a Jew who just happened to convert. Rose comes from Czechoslovakia, and she's going to tell you all about her many brothers and sisters and her time at Auschwitz and her parents and so forth. And with that, I introduce Rose Schindler. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to listen to me. It's amazing how many people there are in this world that never really know what happened during the Second World War. So, anyway, my name is Rose Schindler. I was born in Schwartz. I came from a family of 8 children. I lived in Czechoslovakia in a village. We didn't have more than 1,500 people in our village. We had no electricity in our town, and we had no indoor plumbing. We lived on a farm. Whatever we grew, raised, or whatever you want to call it, that's what we ate. If we didn't grow it or raise it, we didn't eat it. It was a village. We didn't have actually stores where you could go and buy things like Albertsons or Vons or stuff like that, or even a small store. So, and that's how everybody lived. Everybody had a lot of land, okay? And that's what we lived off, okay? Things under the Czech government were very good. The Jewish people had all the rights like everybody else. And actually, most of the Jewish people in our town were tradespeople, which means we had no higher education in our town than middle school. If any of the kids wanted to go to get a higher education, they'd have to go 20 kilometers on one side and 20 kilometers on the other side. The name of my town was called Seredně. And Seredně means middle. And there was only one road in those days. If you wanted to go from Munkac to Ungvar, you had to go through Seredně. So we're kind of a popular place because that's the only way to go from one city to another. Anyway, it was a very nice life under the Czech government. We had no problems whatsoever. And actually, that part of the world, I think, was Austro-Hungary before the First World War. So my parents were born in Austro-Hungary. So we spoke Hungarian, and then, of course, when the Czechs took over after the First World War, the Czechs marched in, and they took over our part of the world, that part of the world. And then, of course, in 1939, Hitler in Hungary took over. Hitler and Hungary, they were allies. So Hungary did all of Hitler's dirty work. We never saw an SS soldier till 1944 in our town. So the Hungarians were pretty anti-Semitic, a lot more anti-Semitic, than the Czech people, the Czech government. They really were very good towards the Jews. As I said, we had no problem at all. So anyway, so here we are. We live in a 3-room house, okay? Every room had beds, because we were 10 people, 6 girls and 2 boys, and my parents. And my father was a tailor, and he had a shop in the middle of the town. And how people learned jobs in those days, they were interns. Like my father would always have a couple of interns in his shop, and the kids would go to school only till the age of 13, or middle school, and then they would learn trades. They would go into, say, my father's shop. They want to become a tailor, or they would want to become a painter or an electrician, or even though we had no electricity, of course, but we were actually during the war or just before the war, a lot of people were saying that we're going to get electricity, but then when the war started, they said, well, we're going to have to wait till after the war. They were getting ready to bring a lot of good things into our village. So anyway, as I said, we had a nice life, okay? We knew everybody practically in town, okay? We had one synagogue, and we also had a couple of churches. We had a Greek Orthodox church and a Catholic church. and we had one school, so we all went to the same school. The Catholics also had, and they had Catholic schools also. But otherwise, public school was the only one school, okay? And it was from kindergarten till age 13, middle school. So, as I said, everything went along very well till 1939. In 1939, half a dozen Hungarian soldiers marched into our town. Actually, they came on bicycles. Remember, there's no public transportation, no cars, nothing like that, okay? So they came in on bicycles, and actually I even have a picture in my house, somehow, I don't know how I got it, with a couple of the Hungarian soldiers with their bicycles at our synagogue. So I don't know what they were doing at the synagogue, but anyway, and how I got that picture, I don't know either. So, but this was a picture taken before we were taken away. So here we are, and little by little, everything is changing. Hungary did a lot of dirty work for the Germans, okay? So the first thing, after a while, say a few months, all the Jewish kids were not allowed to go to school anymore. I had 3.5 years of education, okay? And then all the Jewish businesses were taken away. Even though the non-Jewish men in our town, they really were not into professions. They were mostly farmers in our town, the non-Jewish people. So even though we didn't have my father didn't have a tailor shop, there was nobody there that could take over his shop, because they didn't know. The non-Jewish people, nobody was a tailor there, so really, all they did was just close the shops, and that's it. So anyway, and all of a sudden, we're third-class citizens, where before, we were the leaders of town, we were the business people in town, and everybody was happy. We all got along with our neighbors. We had no problems. But things are changing. Every day, bad things are happening to us, okay? Because, as I said, all of a sudden, we're third-class citizens. We have no rights for anything. So this is going on till this happened in 1939, and it's going on till 1944. We were lucky in a way also that we were left at home till 1944, because a lot of the Jewish people, they started taking into camps in 1938, 1939, especially Poland and other countries. They started very early to build concentration camps. So we were lucky that they didn't take us before. So anyway, so in 1939, about 3-4 weeks before, SS soldiers march in on bicycles, okay? And about 5 or 6 of them, and this was just before Passover. Are there any Jewish people here today? Okay. Because today is Passover, by the way. You have Easter tomorrow. So anyway, so during Passover, we don't eat bread. I don't know if anybody knows that. We eat matzahs, which is crackers, 12 inches by 12 inches. And the reason the Jewish people, we didn't eat bread during Passover, because we were remembering the Jews of Egypt. When they were exiled, when they were freed to leave Egypt, they were always on the go. They didn't have enough time to bake bread. You know, when you bake bread, it takes many hours. Well, I know when I bake a bread, it takes 5-6 hours. So what do you do when you have no bread, you know? It's pretty bad. So for a whole week, we don't eat bread, but we eat a lot of other very good things, okay? So anyway, my mother said, after we had Passover, and it's the funniest thing is that the end of the day of Passover in 1944 was on a Saturday. And it was April 11th. And how I know this, I went to my synagogue and asked the rabbi, does he have a calendar of 1944? And would you believe it, he had it. And that's how I knew that it was April 11th, 1944, when they made the announcement for us to be taken away. So this is April, one day after Passover. At least they let us have our Passover, okay? So I'm going to the bakery. Of course, we did have a bakery in our town, all right? Because not all the homes had ovens, big ovens, because, you know, when you bake, I mean, my mother used to do all the baking, all the cooking, everything, she would bake, we would have an oven in our kitchen that was probably maybe 8 or 10 feet long. It was built in the wall. If you came in the house, you didn't even know. There was a little opening, just like a fireplace. It was a big oven, and on a Fridays, there used to be a lot of baking and cooking in that oven, okay? So, and it was enough baking for a whole week, so you can imagine how much bread you have to bake, and cakes and stuff like that for 10 people in the family. So anyway, so this is Sunday morning, one day after Passover. My mother says, go get a bread, okay? Because we're hungry, and we had enough of the matzahs, you know? Who wants to eat more crackers? You had it a whole week, it's enough. So here we go, and so I go to the bakery, and you know, every town in Europe had farmers markets. And I believe those farmers markets came to the United States from the European people, okay? So we would have farmers markets once a week, and we would have all kinds of animals and stuff like that, and we would have anything that we have too much of, we would go to the farmer's market, and we would barter. There was never any money exchanged. Say we have all kinds of animals on our farm, maybe we had too many eggs or too much this or too much that, we would take it to the farmer's market and we would exchange. That's how it was. So anyway, so the farmer's market was right in the middle of the town also. So I'm going to the town, which is just 5 minutes walk or 7 minutes walk for me to go to the farmer's market there. And this man is making announcements. Excuse me. So how do you tell the people the news? We have no newspaper, we have no radios. It was all against the law. We never had newspapers in our town anyway, but we did have maybe a couple of people had some radios, okay? And if anybody had a radio during the war, they were told if anybody has radios, they need to turn them in because it's against the law to have the radios. So you know, the 4 years or so that we were in my hometown, till 1944, from say 1939, we had no news whatsoever from any other town. The only news we would get is people would come in at night, sneak into our village, and give us some news. That's the only way we would know what's going on in the world. But the radios was against the law, and actually we had no electricity. How would they have? So we couldn't have radios because there was no electricity. So we probably didn't even have any radios. So anyway, so I'm going to the bakery to get a bread, and this man at the farmer's market, which is right in Middletown, is making announcements with a drum. Okay? That was his job in town. When there's something new, he would go to the farmer's market and use a drum, and that's how people would get together to learn the news. Okay? So I'm going and I'm listening to what he's saying. He's at all the Jewish people in town. We had about 60% of the, no, 60% of the community was Jewish, which was a pretty good, not 60%, I would say. We had 600 Jewish people in my hometown, and there must have been 1,500 or more people totally. So, so he's announcing all the Jewish people need to gather at the farmer's market the next couple of days. Everybody's entitled to bring a suitcase or a bag. We had no suitcases, by the way. You'll have to excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. And all this talking doesn't help me. I don't know why when I get cold all the time. For schools I go. Okay. Anyway, so this man is making these announcements. All the Jewish people, they have a day or two. Everybody's entitled to bring a bag. So we did have a fabric store in our town. Of course, you have to have fabric stores because everything that we wear is homemade, including underwear. Okay. So my mother told me to go to the, once we found out all the information, I came home, my mother said, go to the fabric store and get a few yards of burlap. And that's how we sewed up some bags, so everybody's entitled to bring a bag so we can put our stuff in. So I go home and I tell my mother what's going on, and she says, we know everything that's going on because, you know, bad news travels fast. So within a couple of days, we report to the school, okay? We had one school, and that's where we were supposed to report. So, and we're all entitled, and then before we came to the school, they told us if anybody has any valuables or money, to bring it to the school, and they're going to put it away for us, and they're going to give it back to us when we come home. You know what BS means, okay? So my father said to my two sisters and me, I want you to come with me. I put a few pieces of jewelry into a shoe polish box, like my mother's wedding band, my earrings, maybe a necklace or whatever, and my father's pocket watch. I'm going to put this away, and I want you and your two sisters to come with me. I want to hide it, and I want you to know where it is when you come back from the war. So my father maybe knew already there's a chance that he would not come back from the war. So I am wearing a necklace on my chain, on my neck. This is from my father's pocket watch. I wear this every day in my life. The only time I don't wear it is because when we go to fancy parties and the jewelry doesn't match, doesn't go with it, so I'll take it off. Otherwise, first thing I get up in the morning, I put this on. I think that's what keeps me going. I really mean that. So anyway, so my two sisters said they don't want any part of this. They don't care where this is put away, the jewelry. I said to my father, I'll go with you. So I went with my father, and we hid the little shoe polish box between the ceiling and the wall. There was some type of an opening there, and we pushed it in between all kinds of dirt and covered it up. And when we came back after the war, I knew exactly where it was, and we divided the jewelry between my two sisters and I. So, especially after we found out that nobody else is coming back from the war. So here we are at the school, and then finally they put us on oxen-driven wagons, okay? And they'd send us to the next town. We did have a train station in our town, but the trains didn't work. So, so they send us to the next town, which is Ushhorod, or Ungvar, and it's 20 kilometers, okay? So it must have taken, I would say, 10 to 12 hours for us to get to Ungvar. I could have walked it faster, probably, okay? So they squeezed in I don't know how many people in every wagon, and we get there to Ungvar, and they put us at a train station. And the reason they put us at the train station was so we should be ready to be shipped away. And also, that train station there, they had a brick factory there. They used to ship a lot of bricks from that place to all kinds of cities and that part of the world, okay? So there was no housing, and they brought in all the people from all the villages into that area. There were a lot of villages in Europe, okay? Like here today in San Diego, I would say 100 years ago, El Cajon was probably a village, right? Or some of the other, Chula Vista even. I don't know if Chula Vista was even there 100 years ago, right? So we had little villages all over that area. So they would bring in all the people from the villages to Ungvar. This city had over 20,000 people to the train station to be shipped away from there. So here we are. There was no housing, and I think this is April 1944. The temperature is between 25 and 30 degrees. We used to have winter for at least 5 months every winter. The snow would settle in. Nobody would even shovel the snow away. It would just stay there from the fall to the spring. So this is April 1940. Anyway, so they put up some tents, and they put several families in each tent, and we kept each other warm. There was no heat or anything. So here we are, and I don't remember about the food. I remember so many things, but I don't remember about the food. So I'm sure it was very minimal, okay? Well, of course, I'm sure my parents took whatever they could, but how much food can you take for 10 people? How many days can it last? 1 or 2 days? So here we are, and they're shipping people away. Every other day, they're shipping people away. Who knows where they're shipping them? And finally, after being there maybe 2-3 weeks, finally our turn came, and they put us on the train. They squeezed in at least 60 to 70 or more people in every train. There were no seats in the train. These are cattle trains. They used to ship bricks in these trains, okay? Or whatever else, wood or what. It was not a passenger train. They squeezed in a whole bunch of people, as many as they could. Complete families, from infants to grandparents. The train, we have no water, we have nothing on the train. The only thing we have is if we brought something with us, if we had anything to bring along, okay? So here we are going, and it probably took over 2 days for us to get from Ushhorod to Auschwitz, Poland, okay? I would say about 2.5 days. People were passing out in the train. People were relieving themselves in the train because they did not stop for anyone to relieve themselves. So you can imagine the situation we were in. Finally, the train arrives at Auschwitz-Birkenau. The train stops, and the door opens, and a man in a striped uniform comes on the train to help us with our luggage. I want to tell you that all the work in the camps was done by the Jewish people. If they wouldn't do it, they would shoot you on the spot. They had no choice. Everything was done by the Jewish people. So this man in a striped uniform, head shaven, comes on the train to help us with our luggage. And he comes to me, he says to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I am 14. He says, "Tell him you're 18. I had no idea what he was talking about. And he's walking around and telling other women, young kids, to see if he tells them to lie about their age, because they did not bring us here to have a good time. They brought us here for slave labor, okay? So we get off the train, and we're walking a couple of minutes, and we come in front of 5 in a row. We come in front of 3 SS soldiers. One of them must have been Mengele, okay? And I think it was Mengele. I don't know if anybody knows who Mengele was, but he was one of the worst persons in the world, okay? He was not a person, he was an animal. He was not a human being. Anyway, so he comes to me, he says, I come in front of the SS, he says, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18. And my sister Helen says, "Oh, she's only 14. She had no idea, because she was not approached by this survivor who came on the train to help us with the luggage. She had no idea. She thought if I go with my mother, I would be better off. I said, "Oh, no, I am 18. He let me go with my 2 sisters. Otherwise, I would have gone with my mother and 3 sisters and brothers straight into the gas chamber. Never saw them again. And the same, and so my father and my brother was in one line, my mother and 3 sisters, brothers on different line, and my 2 sisters, and that was a third line, okay? So here we are. So we're marching little by little, and we come into a building probably about this size, only 1 level, no stages, okay? And they told us to take all our clothes off and put it on a big pile, and then shaved our hair everywhere, not only in our head, the whole body. They shaved our hair. And then they told us to pick up a dress from another pile, just a dress and clogs. We came, all of us had probably 2 or 3 dresses on, because before we left, my mother said, "Put on a couple of sets of underwears, a couple of sets of dresses, because we don't know where we're going, and we don't know if we're going to have a chance to do laundry." So we really put a lot of clothes on our bodies. All this good clothes, and of course when you travel, you didn't take your rags, you always travel in your best clothes. All these clothes that we brought to Poland, to Auschwitz, all those clothes went to Germany for their people, okay? So anyway, here we are. So they shave our hair, and they tell us to pick up a dress from another pile. We don't get our clothes back. Dress, this is the, April 1944, probably very cold. No underwear, no, just clogs, wooden clogs. And then we wait for further orders. Finally, when we're all done, they send us outside. We go outside and we stay in line, and we're waiting for further orders, always 5 in a row. As we are standing and waiting, there was a guard with a Polish guard with a dog and a gun, standing, I guess he was some type of a guard. And my sister Judy, and there's a fire behind the building, okay? And there's a noise. You can hear children crying, and you hear children calling names. So my sister said to this guard, this Polish guard, "What's that noise and outside? What's the smoke and the fire and the kids complaining, crying and stuff like that?" He said they were burning hair, to my sister. Then she said, "Well, burning hair wouldn't make this kind of noise." Then he said they were burning cripples. When we came into the living quarters in the barracks, later on, we found out what they were doing. They didn't even give the people enough gas to kill them all the way. They shoved them out the back door and they burned them like half alive. So we knew what happened to my mother and sisters and brothers. So here we are, waiting for further orders. Finally, they march us into the barracks, and we go to sleep. We have 3 rows of bunks. There's 30 barracks in Auschwitz Camp C. There was A, B, and C. They did the same thing to the gypsies, by the way, okay? There were a lot of gypsies in Europe. Camps A, B, and C. Gypsies, and the gypsy camp, the Hungarian camp, and the Czech camp. We were separated by 12-foot electric wires. Has anybody seen Schindler's List? Okay, so you probably saw the wires, 12 foot high. So we come in there into the Camp C, and we go into the barrack number 26. There were 30 barracks in each one. One barrack was a kitchen, one barrack was a bathroom. The bathroom had sinks with cold water and holes in the ground. That's what they had. So we go to sleep, we get up the next morning. We must have put 10, 12 people in every bunk. We kept each other's bodies warm because there was no blankets, nothing. No mattresses, no nothing. And this is pretty cold weather out. So we go to sleep the next morning, we get up, and they're serving us coffee for breakfast. They're not really serving it to us. It's in a pot, 6-quart pot, 7-quart pot, coffee. And we share it with 10, 15 people. Take a sip. The coffee tasted like dirt, soot, black soot. That's what it tasted like. You took one sip and you probably would throw up. That's how horrible it was. So after that, I took one sip and I said, that's it. I will never try take another sip in my life. So I told my 2 sisters, I want to go outside. I see what's going on. Okay, so I go outside and I see all these barracks and I see all these people like zombies walking around. See a lot of dead bodies on the ground. You see a lot of dead bodies on the electric wires. You know, the electric wires was the easiest way to commit suicide. You would put your hands on the electric wires, 20 seconds later, blood comes out of the nose and you're dead. The easiest way to die. People couldn't handle it. They would just go on the electric wire and commit suicide. So they were people, you can't even explain how horrible that place looked like, okay? So here we are, and then as I'm walking, somebody's calling my name. I said, my God, I knew I was popular. I didn't know I was that popular that somebody should know me in this God-forsaken place. And that really was a God-forsaken place. I just want to know, where was God when this was going on? Okay? So anyway, I'm walking, and all of a sudden somebody calls my name. Royce, Royce, that was my Jewish name. It was my father. My father and my brother were selected to go to a factory to work already, and they were in a couple of barracks temporarily because this was an all-women's camp. And he says, Royce, don't you recognize me? My father always had like a 3-inch beard. He wore a suit, a tie, a hat, well-dressed, and there's this man, shaven, everything was shaven off, with a striped uniform, no hat. You know, when you're used to seeing somebody a certain way all your life, and this person appeared like unbelievable, he said, don't you recognize me? I'm your father. So we hugged and we kissed. And the first thing he said to me, where's your mother? And at that time, I really didn't know, because we found out about my mother and 3 sisters and brothers that same day later on that afternoon. We found out what they did to a lot of people in the gas chambers. So we hugged and we kissed and we talked, and he said to me, stay together because you have a much better chance of surviving, and also stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us. And we said goodbye after we talked for a few minutes, and my father said, I need to go back because they're going to be shipping us out, and I don't know when, probably today or tomorrow. So we made up to meet again the next day, and I brought my 2 sisters with me, and my father brought my brother, and we met again, and he repeated the same thing. Stay alive so you can tell the world together what's happening. Tell the world what they're doing to us. So we did meet, and we said goodbye, and then, of course, we made up to meet again the next day, but they were gone, because this was an all-women's camp. Never saw my father and brother again. So here we are in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Lunchtime, they give us a slice of bread with a piece of margarine. We always have to line up for it. And also, every morning, they count us. Every morning, they count all the barracks because they need to know how many people there are in every barrack, because we came there for one purpose. So they should put us to factories, send us to factories to work, okay? So they give us a piece of bread for lunch with a piece of margarine, and dinner time they give us soup in a pot, just like the coffee, okay? And the soup is cabbage and rice and potatoes and a lot of dirt and sand, okay? If you're lucky to get a potato, that would have been your good day, and you share it between 12 people or whatever, 12 women, okay? So it was not edible food, not for us anyway. So if you, as I said, if you were lucky to get a potato, that would have been a good day for you. So here we are. Every morning we have to get up to be counted because they need to know how many people are in every barrack. Because they brought us here for slave labor. They didn't bring us here to have a good time. So we go out. So we said we're not going to go the first few days. We're going to wait maybe a week, and then we will go out and get selected to leave. Finally, we decided to go out, and they put me in the gas chamber line. Okay, I was always very thin and little, and and already we were told if they don't keep you together, you better run out of the line, make sure nobody sees you, otherwise they're going to shoot you on the spot. So they put me in the gas chamber line, and I snuck out, but nobody saw me, and my sisters would sneak out of their line too, because there's always other people that are happy to get in their place to leave this Auschwitz-Birkenau place, okay? So after doing this 3 times, we decided we're not going to go for selection anymore, because there's 1,000 women in every barrack. We are not forced to go out to get selected to work. We're going to wait out that the war would end. The war has already been there 4 years or so. We were hoping the war would end, because there were always rumors in our camp that the Russians are coming, the Americans are coming, we're going to be liberated soon. You know, that's what kept us alive, by hoping that tomorrow is going to be a better day, and hoping that we're going to be surviving. So anyways, excuse me. I had bronchitis about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it does not want to leave my body. So anyway, so here we are. So after deciding after 3 selections that we're not going to go out, because as I said, there's hundreds and hundreds of women in every barrack. We're going to wait for the war to end. So we decided so we're not going out, and of course they're doing selections all the time. So little by little, you get used to horrible conditions, and it's amazing how much a person can take. Unbelievable how much a person can take. So after being there, say 2 months, okay, we found out, we were skin and bone, by the way, but after being there 2 months. We could barely walk, okay, or stand on our feet. After a couple of months, we found out that we had a couple of cousins in barrack number 2, and they are in charge of giving out the food. You know what that means. We're going to have an extra slice of bread. We're going to have an extra piece of this or that. So we went over there, and the thing is, you could change barracks, because they never took our names when we went into the barracks. So we went and moved into the barrack number 2, and our cousins, of course, were very kind to us. They were helping us in every way they could. And of course, within 4 weeks, our cousins are leaving, because they're coming to the barracks. They need 300 women or 200 women. They're going to try to get out. So my 2 sisters said, well, we're going to stay behind because we're hoping the war would end, because this is late 1944, okay? It's probably September of 1944 already. So my cousins left. Of course, after they left, of course, we probably put on a few pounds while we were there together for about 4 weeks. And my sisters were afraid to go to get selected to work, because they knew that they wouldn't let me go through there. So we stayed behind, and finally we're waiting and waiting, hoping that the war wouldn't end. And then they come to our barrack. They need 300 women to go to factory to work in Freudenthal in Germany. So I said to my sisters, I think we better try to get into to this transport, okay? So I said, you go out and get selected to work, and I will see how I can steal myself into the transport. Because I know they wouldn't, because sometimes they would make us get undressed to go in front of the SS to see if we had enough flesh on our bodies, okay? So I said, go and get selected and save a place in line. I will see how I can get out of here. So our barrack has a door in the front and a door in the back. And in the meantime, they're getting selected, but there's a guard on the back door. So I said, how am I going to get out if there's a guard on the back door? Finally, I see one of the leaders in the barrack goes to the back door, and she lets her out. And I quickly chase to the back door. The barrack probably was this long, like from there to there, and maybe a few more feet. It was pretty long. I said, so I run to the back door, and she says, where are you going? You're supposed to go to the front door and get selected to go to factory to work. I said, I don't want to go to the factory to work. I said, my mother just walked out. I want to go with her. How that came to my brain, I have no idea. It was a lie, of course. She lets me out. My sisters held a place in line for me. This is how I got out of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Of course, being 4 months in Auschwitz-Birkenau, we haven't had a shower in 4 months. Can you imagine our bodies? They're full of lice. We couldn't sleep at night because the lice were biting us, big lice. Some women from the camps have marks on their bodies from the lice biting. So, of course, they're not going to send us anywhere in this situation, okay, in this condition. So they're sending us to the bathroom. They shave our hair again everywhere, and they disinfect our bodies to get rid of the lice. And they give us decent clothes, underwear, socks, and shoes. I mean, this is probably September, October of 1944, which is pretty cold already. It's like heaven compared to what we have been doing 4 months in Auschwitz. So here we go. And they gave us regular clothes. We never wore uniforms, our group. We were 300 women. And they gave us labels on our dresses, okay, with our names and our numbers. So I have a number on my arm. It's a tattoo. If anybody wants to see it later, you can come and see it. They gave the tattoos to us when we came into the factory to work in Freudenthal, okay? But once you get the tattoo, you know you're safe, that you're going away. We have no, heaven is ahead of us. So anyway, so we go to Freudenthal. They put us on trucks and they send us to Freudenthal. And as I said, they gave us everything that we needed for the weather, considering the weather, clothes and everything. It took us about 2.5 to 3 days to get to Freudenthal. Finally, we get there, and we have 2-story buildings, 2 of them. We get a canteen, we get a fork, we get a spoon, we get decent everything. It's like they're treating us like human beings, okay? Mattresses and blankets, the whole bit. If they want our slave labor, they have to treat us properly, okay? So that's what we did. We were there and we worked. I worked on gas masks, okay? I had to sit on a high chair, pick up a gas mask, look inside and put it down. Up and down for 12 hours a day. And after doing that for 10 hours, I said to the helpers in the factory, I said, you know, this is hard work. I should get an extra meal a day. And she says, sure, you could have an extra meal. And I would get an extra meal and I would take it to our living quarters and I would share it with my sisters, okay? So we did that. So here we are working, and they're always telling us if we don't do good work, they're going to send us back to Auschwitz. And we know what Auschwitz is, the gas chambers. How much time do I have left? I see you looking. No, just wondering.
Maybe about 10 minutes, Rose.
Huh?
Maybe about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Okay. So anyway, so here we are working, and 10 minutes. Thank you. And the SS would always march us to the factory to work because the factory was on the same lot, okay, like 5-minute walk. So we're waiting for them to come and pick us up, okay, and nobody's coming. And this is May 1945. So I said, and we're not supposed to leave the building, okay? till the SS come to march us to the factory. So I said, I'm going, and we're waiting and nobody's coming. And I said to my sisters, I'm going outside, I want to see what's going on. This is how I survived the war, by always doing things that I wasn't supposed to do, okay? And sometimes you have to do things in order to survive, okay? That's how it was in Auschwitz. I mean, the things I did, a lot of people couldn't do, and that's why they were killed and they were died in all kinds of ways. So I go outside, and the gate is wide open. All the SS ran away. And so, but the thing is, I already have like 7 or 8 inches of hair, and I'm wearing irregular clothes. And I thought to myself, if I go, and I could hear the Russian language, and I could hear the planes are going all over us. Okay, this is May 1945. Okay, and I recognize the language because in our town, the Ukrainian people, they all spoke Russian. It's kind of like Ukrainish, very similar. So I knew what the Russians are coming, and there were planes coming all over us, okay? So, but I figured if I go in front of them in regular clothes, they would probably think I'm a German and they would shoot me. So I found a rag on the ground and a stick, and I went like this in front of the Russians. The Russians were coming in from they came in from the back of our building where they had all kinds, they were growing a lot of corn, the cornfields. And you could hardly see the people because they were all between the corn things, you know. So so I ran into the field, and they hugged me and kissed me, and I told them we have 300 women here in the camp. So they came, and the Russians were very good to us. Anything we needed, if they didn't have it, they would take us into town, okay? Because all the Germans in our town in Freudenthal, all the men were in the military. The only people that were left behind are the women and the children. So anyway, so they did a lot of things for us, the Russians. And the next day, a Russian came into our area, and he said, and I happened to be outside, he says, do you want to go to town, maybe get an extra dress or an extra pair of shoes? Because all we have is one dress, one pair of underwear, one pair of shoes. You know, and we would have a shower once a week, and that's how we lived. We did not have any extra clothing. So I'm sure it would be nice to have an extra dress and stuff like that. So, this Russian soldier, he must have been 6 feet tall, good looking. So I said, can I bring a friend with me? Because I was kind of afraid, okay? So he's holding my hand. He was maybe 6 feet tall. Me, I'm 5 feet tall. We're standing there, you know, and when we are leaving to go to town, it's just like I was reborn. Something happened in my body, like I was a new person. Unbelievable feeling. So anyway, he took us to town, and he took us into the German homes. They were all open, and we took what we needed. Of how much can you carry, right? So anyway, here we are, and of course, a lot of us overate, by the way. You know, if you overeat, you can get sick. So we stayed in Freudenthal for about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we became fine, and we decided it's time to go home. We were hoping my father and my brother survived the war. We knew my mother and 3 sisters and brothers had gone. So we go to the train station, and the trains did not run very often in those days, you know, in the 40s, middle 40s. Maybe they would run twice a week. So we were at the train station for 3.5 days or 4 days. All kinds of people, survivors, civilians, military, all kinds of people. While we were at the train station, my sister Helen, who was now 22, she was the oldest, there was a Czech Jewish soldier at the train station also waiting to report to his group, and they fell in love. So he was a very handsome man. All the girls fell in love with him, I think. But Helen was the one who got him. So we were at the train station, finally we're leaving, so Tibor is leaving, he goes on another train. He says, here is my keys to my house in Prague. You go home and see who survived the war, and then you come to Prague and you're going to live with us. So that was the decision. So Tibor left, and then we are going home. It took us over 4 weeks to get home because we had to change trains all the time. There was no direct trains from Germany to Russia, okay? Of course, all of a sudden, the whole world was very kind to us. Where was the world when this was going on? Nobody lifted a finger to help us. And millions of people were killed for no reason, just because they were Jewish. So anyway, took us about 4 weeks to get home. Finally, we got home. So our house was not livable because the SS held their horses in there or whatever. And the furniture was all gone. So of course, we went to our neighbors and wanted to know where our furniture is, that we want it back. And you know what they told us? If you want to live, you better leave. You better leave, otherwise we're going to finish Hitler's job. So we knew we had no future over there, okay? These were our neighbors who we went to school together. They were friends. They made a living from the Jewish people. And this is why they have a home. All these nice Jewish homes, they all took them over. Maybe some people might get a home back, but we did not get ours back. Anyway, so we knew we were not going to stay in Serednya. And we were hoping my father and brother would survive. But little by little, people were coming back. We had 600 Jewish people in my town. I think maybe 15 or 18 people came back while we were in my hometown. Between we were liberated May 8th. I think by June of 1944, July, maybe 20 people came back from the war out of all those people. So when as I said, we were hoping my father and brother come home. But anyway, somebody came back that was with my father in Auschwitz. And so I said, and then they went to a factory to work. They worked in a factory, and then my father got sick, and they sent him back to Auschwitz, to the gas chamber. It killed him. So we knew my father is gone. And then somebody came back that was with my brother in the camp also, a young man. And he was with my brother, and they had like 200 or 300 people in this factory. They were all doing very well. And so he told me what happened to my brother. My brother, they took out the whole camp and put into the big area, I don't know, a forest or something. They made them dig a big hole, and they shot everybody, killed everybody. So how did you survive? He says, I couldn't leave the barrack. I was too sick to get out of the bunk bed. He survived. And the men were all killed. So we know now that my father is gone, my brother is gone. So of course my sister Helen is leaving right away. She says she has a key to the house in Prague. Why should she stay anymore? So Helen left, and Judy and I decided to stay another week or so. We wanted to see who else is coming back from the war. Maybe some of our friends. Anyway, so after a week or so, we decided to try to get on the train to leave. This is occupied Russia, by the way, and you have to wait a long time before you get on the train. So we went to the train station, and we cannot get a permit. So after being there 2.5 days or 3 days, my sister Judy says, I'm going back to Serednya because there's a young Jewish man that came back from the war, and he got his house back, and he wants to stay and live in his house. So I said, fine, you can stay. I said, I'm going to Prague. So I stayed at the train station. Judy went back to my hometown, okay? It was 20 kilometers away, okay? And I never saw my sister Judy again. I went to Prague, and Judy died in 1960 because she was never recovered from the war. She stayed there with her husband, and they had a son. Anyway, so here we are in Prague, and my sister Helen said, there's a Jewish man by the name of Sir Leonard Montefiore. He's looking for 1,000 Holocaust survivor children under age 16 to take to England for rehabilitation. And a lot of us needed rehabilitation. So my sister signed me up for that program. So so they found 732 kids under age 16, but a lot of us were over 16 because none of us had any ID of any kind. So even if you were 20, they would, they lied about their age and they went through. So we went, of course in those days, in 1945, there were not too many planes, so what they used to do is they would send like 35 kids on every plane to England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales, and those were bomber planes, not regular planes. And those bomber planes didn't take more than 30 kids or 35 kids. So it took them about 8 months or 9 months before all, or maybe 10 months, even more, before all of the kids were shipped to England and all the other places. So, so I was on the last transport. I went to Scotland, okay? I went to Scotland. We had about 45 kids, and they were teaching us Hebrew because they want us to go to Israel, because it's about time the Jewish people had a country of their own, okay? So anyway, here we are, and a lot of, they're teaching us Hebrew, they're teaching us English. They're even trying to send us to the regular school, but it didn't work out. Maybe we went for 2-3 weeks, and it didn't work out for us to be with the English, Scottish kids trying to learn the language. But they were teaching us English and Hebrew in the hostels during the day and at night. So here we are, and little by little kids are leaving. They're finding relatives all over the United States and other places. So the hostel is emptying out, and they said we could go to Manchester, to England, Manchester, Liverpool, or Bedford. So our group was a Zionist organization, Hashomer HaTzair, and so we decided to go to Bedford, which is that's where the kids are that are going to Israel. So we went to Bedford, okay, and I don't remember we took a train or a bus or how, but it's from Scotland to England. So finally we got there, and they introduced us to the kids over there, and I saw a young man, and I said, that's a man I'm going to marry. He was very good looking, nice young man. So anyway, of course, in the meantime, we are there, and he already has a girlfriend, because all the non-Jewish girls from Bedford, from town, they used to come in and have a good time with the boys. Okay, they like the Jewish boys. So he had a girlfriend already. So it took me a while to get him, but I got him. Eventually, I got him. So if anybody has any idea don't ever give up hope. So anyway, so after being in Bedford for several months, maybe a year and a half, the hostel was emptying because people are going to America, they're going here. I know I have no more time. Okay, so we decided to go to London, okay? Our group was left. They said, fine, we can go to London. And that's when we started dating. I started dating Max, okay? So we were learning more English and learning about Israel. And finally, the hostel was emptying out. We were going to London from Bedford. We got engaged. Max and I were married, the first couple to get married from the group in 1950. So in the meantime, we found out that we had relatives in the United States. They want to send us affidavits to come to America. And I said, that's our dream, to come to America. Because going to Israel, there's too many fighting going on. We had enough problems. So we came to the United States in 1951. We were a married couple already. And we lived in New York for 5 years. Then we came to San Diego because we had a friend. You know, all the boys had to report to the military when they came to this country. One of our friends was in San Diego. So my husband came to San Diego one Christmas time, 1955, and to look if there's any opportunities on jobs. He learned the computer business in New York, okay? So he came to San Diego for 3 days, and he never went back to New York. He stayed in San Diego. Within 3 months, we already had a daughter in New York, came to San Diego. We've been here since 1956. We have 4 children. We have 9 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild on the way. And we are so thankful to this country for allowing us to come and make our lives here. Thank you very much. Oh, this is hurting.
Rose had told me, I'm going to move this so people have a clear view too from the other side.
Okay.
She had told me on the way here that Steven Spielberg interviewed, was it 50,000 Holocaust
He
survivors?
interviewed over 50,000 survivors.
And your husband Max and you were
Are both
two
in
of
that
those,
group,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a lot more that he was able to talk about and listen to. But I want to we'll do some question and answer.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I'm speechless myself, which most of you who know me know that that's a first. So this is just overwhelming as far as I'm concerned. But if you have a question, raise your hand. And I was looking for Richard. Yes. Can you grab the other microphone, and we'll just work both sides of the room so that we can quickly get to people. Larry has another microphone in the back, and we want to get the questions and most of all your answers on the. Would someone just like to start with a question? Any question that you have? And I think we'll keep it to questions so we can get comments from her rather than comments from
It only
my
takes
God.
one to ask a question. Then
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, they see how you've...
Yes.
Okay, let me get to your microphone.
Thank you. The Germans came to your town in 39, and you did not get sent off till 44, but your father's profession was taken away from him. How did you guys survive monetarily?
After the war, you mean?
From 39 to 44.
Well, he was a tailor. Remember, we lived on a farm.
You said that they were no longer... You said that he was no longer able to... They took the tailor job away from him or not?
They took everything away.
So how did you survive if he was no longer able to practice tailoring?
In my hometown.
Correct.
Well, because we lived on a farm, we had all the animals we needed, and we had a house, so we could live. As long as you have what to eat, you can live, okay? Yeah, we had no problem in that direction.
Here's Mary, I'll bring you the microphone. You were talking about, and Mary alluded to this in her introduction. You know, I asked, and you commented about it on the way here as well, how the United States government was just turning away ships of people. Do you care to talk about that just a moment, too?
Well, by the way, Roosevelt cut the quota in half for the Jewish people to come to this country during the war. I don't know if anybody knows that. Oh, yeah. Okay? Instead of increasing it, because so many people applied to come here, he cut it in half. And actually, there was a ship that went to Cuba. I don't know if anybody ever saw that movie. What was it called? I can't remember. A ship of 1,000 people leaving Germany in 1939, the last ship that left Europe to go to Cuba. They came into Cuba, and somehow they would not let them get off the ship. So when they were in Cuba, they went to Florida. The ship went to Florida. The government would not let them get off the ship. Okay? The ship went back to Europe. 90% of those people were killed.
Here's my question, Rose. Thank you very much, first of all. You said twice, the first time, where was God when this was going on? And I would like to know how you have managed to survive not just Auschwitz, but the despair of knowing what humanity is capable of. How did you decide to have children? How did you go on with your life? Can you speak to that?
Well, I tell you, sometimes you have to, if you don't have hope, you don't have anything. That's one thing. I never gave up hope. I asked a lot of questions, where was God? But we never gave up hope, because if I would ever give up hope, I wouldn't be here. And actually, after the war, after we were liberated, and after we were free and came to this country, and we started having children, I said to Max, maybe we should become Christian, because I don't want my kids to suffer like what we did. We were thinking about it. I really mean that. So, but the thing is, when you get married and you have children, you have to teach the kids the right thing. So we joined the synagogue the first week we came to San Diego, even though I'm still asking the question, where was God when this was going on, okay? But if you're going to raise a family, you need to raise them the right way. So,
One follow-up question.
Did you get dual citizenship with Israel?
we did not get if we would be in Israel, of course we would get citizenship, but we decided not to go to Israel because there was too much fighting going on in Israel.
But you could have gotten dual citizenship
Oh, absolutely.
from here.
Oh, from here, we never even looked into that.
You did not.
No. Yeah, we probably could. Actually, our dream was to go to Israel, but then, once we came here, this is the most wonderful country in the world, guys. Remember that. There's no other country like America. So, and I've been to Israel many times, and many times I'm sorry that we didn't go to Israel, but things were very hard after the war in Israel. There were so many people killed and wars. We had enough of that. We couldn't.
I have a question in the back.
In Western Canada, my parents had neighbors that were Ukrainian that received, after the war, received small checks from the German government. They were interned in camps. My question is, did any of the Jewish people after the war receive any money, remuneration for their suffering at all?
Yes, yes. We are still getting it.
So they did, the German government did
Oh,
provide
yes, they are
some-
paying for all the survivors, absolutely. Yes.
You said they're still doing it?
Oh, yes, we are getting checks every month from Germany.
When did that start? Recently?
It
or-
started in the 50s.
Okay.
It started in the 50s, okay? By 1962, they closed it off. So anybody that was in this country, they all had the opportunity to apply for compensation or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Question in the back. The man who's been waving the time out has also a question now.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us. Could you tell us just a little bit more about how you got your father's watch band back that you wear as a necklace now?
Okay, I got it back because when we went home, the first thing we did to the house, we went and got the jewelry box, the shoe polish box, and we took divided the jewelry between my two sisters and I, and that's how we did it.
And luckily you had remembered where it was.
Yes, of course. My sisters didn't know, but I knew where it was
Okay.
exactly.
We have a question over here. Come into the microphone. Okay.
So I'm a little bit curious about the sudden change in culture in your village. You said at one point the Jewish people were accepted and part of the community, and then you became third class, you jumped all the way to third class citizens. And I'm just curious to see how that really happened, especially in a community where there wasn't a lot of outside communication, you didn't have radios. Just curious as to how that transition happened, what did it look like to you, and how did it happen so quickly?
I tell you how it happened. All the businesses were taken away from the Jewish people, right? So like my father, who had a tailor shop, I don't know if there were any non-Jewish people who could even do that type of work. But maybe some of the stores that we had in town, the non-Jewish people took them over, okay? And if there was some businesses that the non-Jewish people didn't know how to do it, they just closed it off, okay? So they were very happy to get things for nothing, okay? They were very happy. There was all kinds of things. Every house was furnished, and you know. So, and when we came back, very few people got their homes back. Of course, not too many of us came back after the war. Like my sister Judy, who stayed in my hometown, her boyfriend, he got his house back, okay? So, but also we didn't have any papers to prove we had a house. We had nothing left because the houses were completely emptied out completely. So even if we would, actually in those days, you know, anything that you would buy in the 30s and the 40s is a handshake. You didn't have to have certificates to prove that you're the owner of something like that. So our house was not livable, first of all. The furniture was gone, and they're not going to give it back to us. So there was no future for us to stay there. So
Was it the Hungarian government acting for the Germans who took away your businesses?
yeah, right.
Okay.
Absolutely. But Hungary was ally of Hitler. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another question, ma'am in the back. Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, kind of piggybacking on this last question about the cultural change. You know, a lot of people are saying now that we have a rise in hate crimes here in the U.S. And I'm wondering, there's a slight cultural change happening now. And I'm wondering if this is raising any memories or red flags for you.
Well, you cannot compare this to what we went through, okay, really. Of course, the things changed when Hungary came in. We started calling us dirty Jew, and the kids would start throwing rocks at us, and because everything was taken away from us. But the general public, I'm talking about people that were ignorant, mostly, but that had nothing in their house or anything. The well-to-do non-Jewish people, they were with us in a way. Okay, they didn't like what was going on because they were our friends, okay? But I don't know, I can't compare anything from then to now. It's unbelievably different, so.
Maybe what she's asking is the outcome right now may be different still, but some of the dislike and the discord, does that seem the same kind of roots to you at all, or
Well,
no?
no, because remember, I was a 14-year-old,
Okay.
okay, and I wasn't into any of that. Well, you know, a lot of countries have this hate against Jews. I
Okay.
don't know why. I think it's a lot of jealousy. Because, you know, the Jewish people are very, they work very hard to make a good life for themselves and their families, okay? They're not afraid to work. We always work hard to make money and to have good homes. And in our situation in Europe, they took everything away from us, whatever we had. Everything was taken away. It was very easy for them to get a house. Because we had 600 Jewish people in our town, there must have been at least a couple of hundred homes. Like my house, it was not livable because the Germans held their horses in there or whatever. So it was ruined. We couldn't even live there anymore. But a lot of people that came back, of course, not too many people came back. But they did not welcome us back with their open arms. There was a lot of anti-Semitism after what happened.
Wow, okay. Another question over here to the
How
right.
did you say that you escaped? Did everybody escape, or just you? Did everybody escape?
I'm sorry.
German people? Did everybody? How did everybody escape from the?
Escape? How did everybody escape?
Yeah.
Well, nobody escaped. We were taken away. Escape, you mean?
No, you said you escaped in that one place.
From Auschwitz.
Oh, you mean in
going-
Auschwitz? In Auschwitz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you had to have the guts to do it. If you did not have the guts to do things that were not what you're not supposed to do, you did not survive. Okay? This is how I survived, by not giving up hope and hoping the war would end. We're going to be liberated, okay? So as much as we said, where is God, we still had hope because that's the only thing that made us survive.
Something in an article I read said that you actually were beaten by guards at one point for complaining about
The food.
the food.
Well, you know, we were lined up every day to get the food, and one day we lined up, and I had a slice of bread, and they cut it in half, okay? And I said, you only gave me half my portion. And she beat me so bad I couldn't stand on my feet for 3 days. So my sister said, next time, shut up, don't say anything. So,
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just curious on your last name. Any relationship?
we don't know. My husband's family came from the same part of the world where Oskar Schindler came from. And we believe, you know, he saved 1,000 Jews in Oskar Schindler in a factory, okay? I don't know if anybody knows that, okay? So we believe that Oskar Schindler's family was Jewish and they converted, but they still had a little Jewish blood in him. That's why he did what he did, okay?
Yes, back to Mary here.
I know that you had to work in factories, and I know that one of those factories was Siemens and another one was Farbin.
I didn't understand.
I know that you had to work in factories.
Right, in Freudenthal.
Yes. And one of those factories was Siemens, and one of them was Farbin, right? And I wondered if you had any lasting repugnance at buying those German products.
Are you asking me if I buy any German products? Is that what the question is? Because I couldn't really understand you.
That's simplified, that's the question.
Yes. Well, I tell you one thing. We would never buy anything made in Germany for many years. Especially when I lost my husband 2 years and 3 months ago. We were married 67 years. Actually, we were the first couple to get married from the group. So, but no, he was born, my husband was born in Germany of Polish parents, okay? And they left, the parents, when they got married, they moved to Germany to make a better life for themselves because Germany was a very advanced country, okay? So, and they had a beautiful life in Germany before the war. But then everything went to pot, okay? So then if anything we would buy, as a matter of fact, one of my sons bought one of those German cars, okay? when he turned our first son, when he turned 16, he bought a car. And I don't remember that, it was a German car. And my husband almost had a fit when he came home with this car. He says, don't you know we don't want to buy anything made in Germany.
Just as we continue, you were telling me that there is a book that's being finished that you and your husband had collaborated on that
Right.
ought to be published sometime in the next year or
Yes,
so?
yes, we
Okay.
will have a book out within a couple of months, my history and my husband's history, all our stories about the horrible, horrible years we spent in prison, and also the good years when we came here.
We want to stay in
So I have
contact
some
so we
cards,
can-
if anybody would be interested. I can let you know when the
Right,
book
and
comes
we will
available.
send that out to our mailing list and
Yes.
advertise it, okay? Any other questions? Let me go back. You had
Okay.
said that you went to school for like three and a half years?
3.5 years of
Were you
education.
able to continue education after that?
I didn't. What 15, 16-year-old wants to go to school? Tell me. I had no one telling me what to do. And besides, after the hostels, we were done with the hostels, we worked. We had to make a living. So, but my husband went to night school in New York, and he learned the computer business, okay? The first couple of years, he was trying to sell vacuum cleaners door to door. He was trying to work on something else. It didn't work out. So finally, he went to night school and learned the computer field. So after 6 months learning the computer field, he worked for IBM, I think, in New York, okay? And he did very well. And then when he came to San Diego, there were so many jobs in that field. He was here 3 days. He applied at Solar. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. And he got a job. And then worked 6 years at Solar. And then one night, we were out at a party, and he fell, and he had an accident. And he couldn't go back to work on Monday at Solar. Listen to that. He comes in on Wednesday, and he said, "You're fired. You didn't come back to," and he called saying he was an accident. So then he goes and applies for General Dynamics. He retired from General Dynamics after working there 28 years. So that was his business of computer field. So, and I actually worked too when I came here. I worked as a dressmaker, okay? And I also worked in fabric stores. When we had our first child, Max was working the night shift. So I would go to work and he would watch my daughter, okay? We worked very hard to become where we are, okay? And after about 10 years, we decided to open a fabric store. So we had a fabric store for 10 years. And then, and we opened it in Allied Gardens, a shopping center by Kaiser. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. And after, it was very low rent. After having for 5 years and a 5-year extension with the same rent, so we stayed another 5 years. Then they wanted to triple our rent. I said, forget it. I'm going to close the shop. That's it. So anyway, and my husband was almost also ready in a few years to retire. He retired he was 59 when he retired. So, so as I said, we have 9 kids, 4 kids, 9 grandkids, and a new grandchild on the way.
Anyone else before we just come to a close? We've got a microphone coming behind you, okay? Anyone else over here that we can, okay?
Thank you, Rose, for your speech, your talk. Have you ever went back lately to your hometown and
Yes,
how
we
are,
did.
And how are things over there? Are people
Not the same. It's
different?
it's a dead town. We went back in '95 to my hometown. We took a tour of Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Germany, because Max always wanted to go back to his hometown. So we went to my hometown. We took 2 days out of the tour and went to my hometown, Seredne. And my husband says, look for old people. They're the only ones that are going to remember you and that speak the language, okay? So we found some couple of people walking on the street. They looked like zombies. The town was not like a dead town. So we were talking to him. He says, you know, when the Jews were here, we had it very good. Now you see what it is, okay? And actually, he was, and then we were walking a little further away, and we went to this Jewish cemetery, okay? because I had some relatives over there. And we came to the cemetery, and there was one of the men there with a goat on a leash. A goat on a leash. Can you believe that? He says, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to come to the cemetery. This is a, what do you call it?